The silence is unbearable for him, not because of what you said, but because of what you did not say. He stares at his phone, replaying the last words you left hanging in the air. Nothing. The absence of your reply burns louder than any insult, sharper than any rejection. And in that silence, something primal awakens in him, an obsession that feeds on the void you created. Most women believe silence is weakness. That if you do not explain yourself, if you do not soothe, if you do not respond, you will be forgotten. But the shadow truth is the opposite. When you vanish into the quiet, you stop feeding his ego and start feeding his unconscious. He cannot dominate what he cannot grasp. He cannot control what will not bend. And so, the silence begins to echo in his psyche, forcing him to confront the very thing he fears. The possibility that you do not need him. This is the harsh truth. The more you speak, the more you give away your power. The more you explain, the more you become transparent. But when you withdraw into silence, you become unfathomable. A dark mirror. A question he cannot answer. And the human mind is wired to obsess over unanswered questions. Especially the mind of a man who craves control. In the mythic layer, silence is not passive. It is the language of the Shadow Queen. Think of Lilith, the first woman who walked away from Adam, refusing submission. She did not beg, did not plead, did not explain. She vanished into the night, and her silence has haunted myth and scripture for thousands of years. She became legend not through noise, but through absence. And in the absence, her power multiplied. You have been taught to fear silence, to rush into it, to patch it, to make it safe. But silence is where transformation happens. When you stop talking, you force him into his own mind, into the labyrinth of his projections. He starts replaying your gestures, dissecting your last glance, inventing meanings where there are none. He turns you into a myth inside his head, because silence leaves space for his imagination to spiral. And here lies the secret. Obsession is never born in clarity. Obsession thrives in the shadows of uncertainty. The unanswered text. The night you walked away without explanation. The way you left his words suspended in the air, never giving him closure. He cannot sleep because silence has no period. It is an open loop, a lingering thread that will not tie itself. But silence is not just strategy. It is shadow work. It is your discipline, your way of stepping out of the wounded maiden archetype who overshares her pain and chases validation. When you stay silent, you are no longer the child begging to be heard. You become the siren who knows that allure is in the withholding, not the giving. Every withheld word is a jewel. Every unanswered message is a lock he cannot pick. And the more you restrain, the more he hungers. Yet silence is heavy. It is not easy to hold. It burns inside you like the chill of marble against bare skin. You feel the urge to break it, to fill the space, to ease the tension. But mastery lies in resisting that urge. To breathe slowly, to let the stillness stretch like velvet across the room. To realize that the weight you feel is not weakness. It is the pressure of power condensing inside you. When you hold the silence, you embody an ancient law of desire. What retreats is pursued. He will chase not because you commanded, but because you withdrew. His shadow fears abandonment, rejection, invisibility. Your silence touches that wound, and he cannot turn away. He needs to break it, to shatter the quiet, to make you speak again. Because as long as you remain silent, you remain untouchable. And this is why his obsession grows. Not because of love, not because of logic, but because your silence has made you archetypal, no longer just a woman but an enigma. He cannot stop circling the question. What does she mean by her silence? Why does she not need to respond? Where has she gone inside herself? You are no longer in his grasp. You are in his unconscious. And there you are immortal. The silence becomes a spell, and with each passing hour it tightens its grip. You are not shrinking. You are expanding in his mind until he cannot escape you. The more he reaches, the more you dissolve into the mist. And in that mist, you are reborn not as the wounded maiden who needs, but as the shadow queen who withholds. In the stillness of your silence, you hear it first. The faint echo of footsteps approaching, restless, searching. The silence has called him back. The silence lingers in the room like a veil. He feels it pressing against his skin, seeping into his chest, gnawing at his composure. He thought he could ignore it, thought he could distract himself, drown it out with noise and motion. But the absence you left behind keeps pulling him back into the hollow space you created. It is not just quiet, it is confrontation. Your silence forces him to face parts of himself he does not want to see. For the first time, he feels powerless. This powerlessness is not born from what you did, but from what you did not do. No response, no explanation, no closure. He cannot bend silence to his will, cannot negotiate with it, cannot seduce it into submission. And so he begins to obsess. The mind, when denied answers, creates its own. Your silence turns into 1,000 possibilities. Maybe you are done with him. Maybe you are with someone else. Maybe you see through him in a way no one else has. Each scenario is a dagger that cuts his certainty apart, and he cannot stop twisting them deeper. Every imagined story fuels the fire of his obsession, making you larger than life. This is where you begin to transform. Not in his eyes, but in your own. The silence is your cocoon. You are not simply withholding words, you are dissolving the old self. The one who rushed to explain, who tried to fix, who feared being misunderstood. That self is dying quietly inside you. And in its place, another archetype begins to awaken. She is the Siren. Not desperate, not wounded, but sovereign. She knows that silence is not emptiness, but depth. That the stillness of the water hides the pull of the tide. She does not shout her power. She lets him feel it in the weight of the unsaid. She becomes irresistible not through exposure, but through restraint. And as you step into this archetype, you begin to feel the shift in your body. Your breath slows. Your gaze steadies. The urge to explain fades, replaced by the sweetness of control. You realize that silence is not submission, it is dominion. Every word you withhold is a boundary. Every pause you prolong is a reminder that you are not his to consume. The silence becomes your armor, but also your throne. It is in this throne of silence that the real work of shadow integration begins. Because silence does not only expose him, it exposes you. In the absence of words, your fears crawl to the surface. The fear of being abandoned. The fear of being forgotten. The fear of being misunderstood. Silence forces you to confront your own shadow, to sit with the discomfort of not being validated. And if you can hold it, breathe through it, you come out sharper, stronger, whole. This is why silence is not a trick, it is initiation. It tests you before it tests him. It asks you, Can you withstand your own shadow without collapsing? Can you remain unshaken when the storm inside demands to be soothed? If you can, you break free of the wounded maiden's cycle of chasing, pleading, oversharing. You rise into the Siren who does not beg for recognition. She commands it by existing. From his side, the silence is unbearable. From yours, it is liberation. And that polarity is what breeds obsession. Because while he spirals, you stabilize. While he grasps, you release. And he feels it, the imbalance of power shifting in your favor. The man who once believed you would always be available now feels the ground moving beneath his feet. Your silence has become his torment and your control. He does not say it out loud, but his body betrays him. The way his hands tighten around his glass. The restless pacing. The restless checking of his phone. The silence has carved a space inside him, and he cannot fill it without you. He is haunted by the simplest, most devastating truth. Your absence speaks louder than his presence. But do not mistake his obsession for love. What you are witnessing is not devotion, but compulsion. And compulsion, when channeled, becomes a mirror. He is seeing not you, but his own shadow through you. And this is where your empowerment lies. To recognize that his obsession is not your cage, but your reflection. It shows you the power you carry when you stop leaking your essence through needless words. It reveals the magnetism you hold when you trust the gravity of your own silence. The night deepens, and the silence grows heavier. You sense it, like a storm building beyond the horizon. His footsteps draw closer, pulled toward you by the force he cannot name. The silence is no longer just absence, it is a summons. The silence drapes around you like a cloak of midnight velvet. You do not move, yet the atmosphere bends in your favor. He feels it the moment he enters the room, the weight of the unsaid pulling him in. There is no accusation, no explanation waiting for him, only the unrelenting stillness. And in that stillness he becomes smaller. The man who once dominated with words and presence finds himself stripped of advantage, caught in a gravity he cannot resist. He searches your face for answers, but you give him nothing. No soft smile to soothe, no nervous laugh to bridge the gap. Only silence, polished and deliberate like obsidian. It unnerves him, because silence has no edges to cling to, no surface to grip. It is infinite. And so the obsession grows deeper, not out of choice, but out of necessity. His mind gnaws at the void, replaying the last time you spoke, dissecting the smallest gesture. The less you give, the more he fabricates. This is the alchemy of silence. It transforms you into a canvas for projection. He paints his longings on you, his fears, his insecurities. Every shadow inside him is cast upon your absence, and he cannot look away. You are no longer a woman in his life. You are a symbol in his psyche. And symbols are far more dangerous than flesh and blood, because they cannot be controlled. They are archetypal, eternal, untouchable. As you hold your silence, you begin to notice the shift in yourself. At first, the quiet was heavy, a burden to carry. But now it hums with power. Each breath you take is a reminder that you no longer need to prove yourself. Each pause becomes a boundary, firm and invisible. You realize that silence is not emptiness, it is presence distilled. It makes you sharper, more defined, like a statue carved from stone. The wounded maiden dissolves further, her trembling need for reassurance fading into memory. What emerges is the shadow queen, cloaked in restraint, radiant in her sovereignty. And yet, the silence does not make you cruel. This is the paradox. It is not punishment, it is truth. Because silence reveals what noise conceals. His reactions, his desperation, his restless longing, these surface only when you stop feeding him with constant response. You learn more about him in your stillness than you ever could through conversation. His obsession is the map of his shadow. His silence-breaking attempts are the confessions he cannot hide. But the silence also forces you to see yourself. The tremor of doubt, the temptation to speak, the ache of loneliness that whispers in the back of your mind. These are not signs of weakness, they are doorways. Every moment you resist collapsing into old patterns, you reclaim a part of your power. Shadow work is not in the grand gestures, it is in this quiet war within. And when you win, you are transformed. This transformation is not lost on him. He senses the difference, even if he cannot name it. The way you do not flinch when he grows agitated. The way your eyes hold steady, neither pleading nor condemning. The way the silence seems to crown you, as though the very air has bent to your command. It terrifies him. It seduces him. It unravels him. And in his unraveling, his obsession takes root. He cannot stop thinking of you, not because of what you offered, but because of what you withheld. Your silence has become his addiction. He craves the sound of your voice the way a starving man craves bread, yet you keep it locked away. Every second you hold the silence, his hunger sharpens. And hunger, unchecked, becomes obsession. He dreams of you, but in his dreams you never speak. You stand in shadow, your presence both haunting and magnetic. He wakes up restless, the phantom weight of your gaze lingering. He checks his phone, desperate, though he knows there will be nothing waiting for him. The silence is alive, breathing, consuming him from within. It is no longer absence. It is presence more potent than sound. And so the stage shifts. What began as a simple absence becomes the architecture of desire. You are no longer chasing his attention, you are sculpting his obsession. Every moment of silence deepens the spell, weaving him tighter into the web of his own longing. And you, steady and sovereign, begin to feel the strange satisfaction of mastery. Yet the silence is not done. Its power stretches further, demanding not just restraint but revelation. You begin to sense that this is not only about him. It is about the parts of yourself still hidden in shadow, waiting to be claimed. And as the silence thickens, it beckons you inward, toward the mirror you have avoided, toward the self you are becoming. The night deepens, and the air is thick with unspoken truth. Your silence has carved a chasm between you, and he hovers on the edge, trembling. You can feel it, the moment approaching when something will break. The silence has stretched so far it feels like a taut string about to snap. Every second carries the weight of thunder held back, of a storm gathering its fury. He paces restless, his voice caught in his throat. He wants to demand, to accuse, to force the words from you, but the stillness around you crushes every attempt. It is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of command. The silence of a woman who has reclaimed the throne inside herself. In his mind, the obsession sharpens to a blade. He begins to imagine you with others, laughing, whispering, confiding in someone else. The void you left becomes populated by shadows of rivals, ghosts that claw at his pride. Your silence makes him compete with phantoms. And no battle is more maddening than the one fought against the invisible. This is how obsession consumes him. He cannot control the silence, so he tries to control his own fantasies and fails. Meanwhile, you feel the paradox of power settle deeper into your bones. It is not that you enjoy his suffering. It is that you finally see the truth. You are no longer trapped in the cycle of proving, pleasing, or chasing. The silence has unchained you. You realize how much energy you once spent explaining yourself, softening your edges, pouring out words that never satisfied. Now you sit in the stillness and feel its richness. You feel yourself expanding, filling the space he cannot touch. The more silent you become, the louder your presence feels. This is where shadow work turns from defense to transformation. The silence is no longer just a weapon against him. It becomes a mirror for you. In its depths, you confront the truth that once terrified you. You do not need his approval to exist. You do not need his recognition to be whole. You are not defined by whether he chooses you, texts you, or begs for you. The silence shows you what was hidden beneath the noise all along: your independence, your mystery, your depth. And from this depth, another archetype stirs. She is not just the siren anymore, singing from the waters. She is the high priestess, the keeper of secrets, the one who knows that silence is sacred. Her gaze pierces, her words are rare, and her presence speaks more than language ever could. She does not chase power, she channels it. She does not beg for devotion, she evokes it. Through her silence, she becomes untouchable, both feared and worshipped. He senses this shift, and it unravels him further. He thought silence would make you fade, yet you have only grown brighter in his mind. Every hour you remain silent, you rise higher in his imagination, no longer ordinary, no longer reachable. You are myth now, a woman who walks in his thoughts like a phantom queen. And the more unreachable you become, the more his obsession claws at him, desperate to pull you back into the realm of the ordinary. But you will not descend. You are learning to live above the noise. Silence reshapes the dynamic. He used to believe he held the reins, that he could provoke and predict you. Now he is the one unsettled, the one addicted, the one circling your absence like prey around a predator. And you, calm and still, embody the paradox of true power. You do not need to fight for it. You need only to hold. Hold the silence. Hold your center. Hold the energy he cannot possess. But silence does not just alter him, it tests your spirit. Because there will be moments when the void feels unbearable. When the temptation to speak gnaws at you, whispering that perhaps silence means loss. These are the shadows that rise in the stillness, demanding to be faced. And every time you resist breaking the silence too soon, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your fears. That you can hold your own weight. That you can be complete, even in absence. His obsession grows in parallel. It is not logical. It is not love. It is the ache of control slipping away, the torment of a mystery that refuses to be solved. And yet within his torment lies your initiation. You see clearly now, silence is not withdrawal. It is expansion. It is the reclamation of all the fragments you once scattered through words, now drawn back into yourself, condensed into power. The air between you thickens. The silence has reached its climax. His chest rises and falls with restless urgency, his voice breaking at last, raw and trembling. He cannot hold it any longer. Something must break. The breaking point arrives not with a roar, but with a whisper of desperation. His voice cracks as he finally spills words into the silence, begging for a response, any response. But the silence you hold is not ignorance, it is sovereignty. You are no longer performing, no longer proving, no longer patching the cracks in his ego. You are simply there, steady, unmoved, the mirror he cannot shatter. And the more he pleads, the smaller he becomes in contrast to the vastness of your restraint. Inside him, obsession swells into a storm. He thought he wanted answers, but what he truly craves is your voice, your presence, your acknowledgement. Your silence has denied him all three, and so he spirals deeper. He begins to question himself, his worth, his place in your world. And in this questioning, he reveals his shadow. The arrogance peels away, the charm dissolves, and what remains is a boy desperate not to be abandoned. Your silence has stripped him bare. From your side, you feel the shift with clarity. You are no longer reacting to his need, you are observing it. You see the fragile scaffolding of his pride collapse under the weight of the unsaid. And instead of shrinking, you expand further into your role. The silence is no longer effort. It flows from you as naturally as breath. You have become silence itself, unchallenged, unyielding, unbroken. This is where the deeper transformation begins. Because silence is not only power over him, it is mastery over yourself. Every heartbeat you endure without breaking the stillness strengthens your spine. Every urge you resist weaves another thread into your crown. The Shadow Queen is fully awake now, draped not in cruelty but in certainty. Her silence is not a wall but a temple. And in this temple, you sit enthroned, untouchable. The obsession you ignite in him is a byproduct of this shift. It is not your goal, but it is inevitable. Because when a woman steps into her full presence, when she withdraws from performance and explanation, she becomes unbearable to forget. Her silence rings louder than any speech, her absence heavier than any presence. And so he circles you endlessly, pulled by a force he cannot resist, trying to solve a puzzle that has no solution. The more he grasps, the more you dissolve. The more he obsesses, the more you transcend. Yet in the deepest layer, silence is not about him at all. It is about you, reclaiming the voice you gave away. For years, perhaps, you have spoken too quickly, too much, afraid of being left unheard. You gave away your mystery in the name of reassurance. You filled the silence because you feared being forgotten. But now, through shadow work, you see the truth. Silence is not abandonment, it is arrival. It is the moment you arrive fully in yourself, without the need to be echoed back. And paradoxically, it is in that arrival that he becomes lost. Because obsession is born not when a man fully possesses a woman, but when he cannot. When her silence becomes a labyrinth he cannot escape. When her mystery grows larger than his pride. When she ceases to be a participant in his drama and becomes a mirror of his own hunger. That is when he falls, not in love but into obsession. Now the room feels like a stage. He paces restless, words spilling from his lips like broken glass, sharp but meaningless. And you, unmoved, hold the stillness that unravels him. Each step he takes is a surrender. Each plea is another thread in the web you never had to weave, only hold. The silence has done all the weaving for you. And as his obsession consumes him, you feel something entirely different rising inside you. Not pride, not cruelty, but peace. The peace of knowing you no longer chase what is already chasing you. The peace of knowing that the power you sought outside has always been within. The silence does not make you empty. It makes you whole. He sinks deeper into the quicksand of his obsession. You rise higher into the stillness of your power. The dynamic has inverted. The hunted has become the hunter without lifting a finger, without uttering a word. And now, in the thick of the silence, the final revelation waits to surface. The air vibrates with tension, heavy as a storm cloud just before it breaks. And in the charged stillness, a single truth prepares to reveal itself. The silence was never between you and him. It was always between you and yourself. The silence deepens into something almost sacred, a presence that bends the air around you. He stands before you, restless, undone, circling like a man lost in a maze with no exit. Every attempt to draw words from you only collapses against the impenetrable wall of your stillness. And slowly, he realizes he is no longer contending with a woman. He is contending with a force, an archetype, a mirror of his own shadows. The obsession that has taken root in him is not passion, it is compulsion. He cannot stop replaying every glance, every pause, every silence. His ego demands control, but silence has denied him the certainty he craves. It gnaws at him in the night, claws at him in the morning. His pride tries to resist, but his shadow keeps circling back to you. It is not you he cannot release. It is the part of himself that you awakened. Your silence has exposed his dependence, and now he is captive to it. For you, the silence has become something else entirely. At first it was a weapon, then a shield. Now it is transformation itself. It is the crucible where you face your own hunger for validation and realize you do not need it. You breathe deeply and feel the solidity of your own presence, independent of his gaze, independent of his words. The silence has turned inward, becoming a dialogue between you and your own shadow. And in that dialogue, you discover sovereignty. The wounded maiden inside you trembles, still whispering, still aching for reassurance. But you no longer obey her. Instead, you embrace her, hold her, integrate her. The silence teaches you to sit with her cries, without running to fill them with noise. And slowly she dissolves, her fragility folding into the strength of the shadow queen rising. This is shadow work in motion, not in theory, not in books, but in the raw, lived experience of holding what is unbearable until it becomes power. And as the shadow queen awakens in you, the energy shifts. The silence no longer feels heavy. It feels effortless, fluid, alive. It is no longer a void to be endured, but a presence you command. When you look at him now, it is not with fear or longing, but why? A gaze that says, I see you. I see your shadow, your need, your unraveling, and I do not need to rescue you from it. That gaze, paired with silence, cuts deeper than any word ever could. For him, the obsession mutates into reverence. He does not understand it, cannot name it, but he feels it in his bones. Your silence has transformed you into something larger than human in his mind. A siren, a queen, a mystery wrapped in the dark velvet of restraint. And mysteries once born cannot be ignored. He does not want to chase, but he must. He does not want to kneel, but he feels the weight of it pressing upon him. The silence has become your crown, and in his obsession, he sees it gleam. But obsession is not the final gift. The true gift is the integration of your own shadow. Because you have learned to hold the silence without fear. You have learned that the absence of his validation is not the absence of your worth. You have learned that power is not noise, not explanation, not constant effort. It is restraint. It is mystery. It is knowing that you are whole, even when unseen. And now, the silence has ripened into revelation. It is no longer the silence between two people. It is the silence within yourself that has finally been faced, claimed, transformed. You are not defined by what he thinks of you. You are defined by what you hold in the stillness. And in that realization, you are free. The storm in him only intensifies, but you are calm, untouchable. The old dynamic is gone. The one who once chased is now chased. The one who once feared absence now wields it as power. The silence that haunted you has become the silence that crowns you. The night hangs heavy, charged with his obsession and your serenity. He moves toward you, trembling, as if drawn not by choice but by gravity itself. And in his eyes you see it, the surrender he cannot speak, the hunger he cannot quench. The silence has swallowed him whole. He stands before you like a man stripped of armor. Every mask he once wore has fallen away under the pressure of silence. The charm, the bravado, the control, they lie shattered at his feet. What remains is raw, restless hunger, an obsession that gnaws at him like fire without air. He does not understand how the balance has shifted, only that it has. And in that shift he is undone. Your silence does not taunt him, it crowns you. It is not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence. It is the kind that fills the air, heavy, electric, undeniable. He feels smaller beneath it, as though standing in the shadow of a temple built from your restraint. Every moment you do not speak, the gravity of your being presses heavier upon him. And the weight of that presence is what makes him obsessed. For him, silence is torment. For you, silence has become revelation. It has taught you that words once scattered your energy, leaked your essence, diluted your power. Now every withheld word condenses that essence back into you, forging you sharper, deeper, untouchable. You are no longer a reflection of his approval. You are the source, the wellspring he cannot drink from because you decide when, or if, you will speak. This is the ultimate paradox. The less you give, the more he clings. The less you reveal, the more he projects. And the less you perform, the more he obsesses. Your silence is no longer a void to him, it is a riddle. And riddles demand to be solved. He circles you endlessly, trying to crack the code, but silence offers no solution. It is infinite. It is unsolvable. It is power. Within yourself, the transformation completes. The wounded maiden is gone. Her trembling need for reassurance has been absorbed, transmuted. The Siren and the High Priestess have braided into one. You have become the Shadow Queen, anchored, enigmatic, unyielding. Your silence no longer feels like resistance. It feels like nature, like breath, like truth. And in this truth, you find freedom. Because here is the secret. Obsession is never the goal. Obsession is only the echo. The real treasure is your own mastery, your own wholeness reclaimed through silence. You realize now that the reward was never his torment, never his fixation. It was your liberation. You are no longer at the mercy of his attention, his recognition, his validation. You are your own center, radiant in stillness, magnetic without effort. That is the true power of silence. He reaches for you now, not with arrogance but with desperation. Every word he utters falls flat against the immovable force of your calm. Every plea is swallowed by the ocean of your restraint. He is consumed by obsession, but you are no longer consumed by him. The dynamic is sealed. You are free. The silence between you hums, alive, eternal. It is no longer absence. It is presence distilled into its purest form. And in that distilled presence, you see clearly the path ahead. You will never again fill the void out of fear. You will never again leak your essence to soothe another. You have become silence itself, mysterious, magnetic, sovereign. And as his gaze clings to you, trembling under the weight of the unsaid, you feel the final revelation settle in your bones. The silence was never for him. It was for you. It was the shadow's gift, the initiation into your own power. It was the passageway from the girl who chased to the woman who reigns. The night is still, but everything has changed. You sit in the quiet, unshaken, untouchable. And he, obsessed and restless, will never forget the sound of what you did not say. Silence is the crown of the Shadow Queen. It is not emptiness. It is everything.